Hey there everyone, Luke here, and yeah, it seems that with this chapter we're slowly moving into the final battles with Asa and his group, although given what happens in this chapter, I don't think it's going to be as simple as everyone is making it out to be. So we'll get into that when we get into it. So yeah, let's just dive right in. Okay, so this will be chapter 222, titled Precognition. Now, in terms of that title, that's a reference to what Alpha's blooming is. So it wasn't future sight, visions, or anything like what I predicted. It was precognition. Although it kind of works in a similar aspect to what I initially thought it would be. So while I was wrong about the name, I was kind of like on the right track in terms of like how the ability actually functions. But yeah, so we'll get into it. So it starts off with the Alpha and Hyofume basically being like, I guess, members of the Yakuza, where, as they say, I know you've got cash, fork it over, I need it for my Pikachu money. So they're basically talking like the Yakuza gang, of just being like, hey, I know you've got your money, fork it over for me because I need it right now. I see Alpha with tattoos on his body, with a lollipop in his mouth. It's like, okay, what are you in the 4 Kids era of One Piece, Alpha? As we have Hyofume with a nail bat as well, and you see in the background Tayo and Mutsumi just being like, how can we let our kids end up like this? Before it's revealed like, oh no, this is not what's actually happening here. It's a vision of a possible future that is on the screen, that has been generated by Keigo and Shion, but you just see Tayo and Mutsumi just down the floor like, we failed as parents because this is possibly a future that our kids are going to end up as they go on, as Nano says, like, boy, that's one drastic future. And whereas Tayo and Mutsumi are being like really pressed on all this, Hyofume just thinks it's like the most coolest thing ever, because of course she does, because it's related to Alpha, and we have everyone just saying, would you quit that already? You're gonna kill both of them, referring to Tayo and Mutsumi. So while they're just being like, we failed as parents, we have Fruitsburg just being there like, will you just cut it out? You're gonna kill them. And we have Karichov to the side, who's probably being like the most conflicting of all of this, because while he's like, oh great, Tayo's really depressed and he's gonna feel like he's failed and everything, and Sato's probably thinking the exact opposite for Mutsumi, just being like, oh my god, Mutsumi thinks she's failed and she's really depressed. So it's kind of a conflicting issue with Karicho there. Now, in terms of Karicho in the anime, it's and I didn't mention this on Twitter because somebody posted about this, like, Karicho seems to be being portrayed as more badass, and I feel like that is intentional. I feel like what they're doing with the anime is, well, in terms of keeping Karicho's like creepiness in there, I feel like they're dialing it down a bit to kind of give people a sense of like, okay, this guy is, yeah, he is a creep. That's not going to go away, but at the same time, we need to portray him as more badass than anything, to showcase like, yeah, he is a creep, but he does have the skills to pay the bills. So while Tayo is asking Nano like, oh, is this really the future? Is this what these kids are going to turn out to be? Nano informs him like, oh no, it's only one possible future out of many. So this is kind of what they're going with Alpha's ability being precognition. As they say, I'm seeing intense activity in his frontal lobe, the part of the brain responsible for predications. I cannot pronounce that word. I've tried to pronounce it time and time again, rereading this chapter, but no, it's just not coming to me. So predictions, like, Luke, what are you going on about? So, predictions. So, the brain responsible for predictions. I expect his brain is sorting through the myriad of possible futures. So that's kind of what I was getting at in the last few reviews, of just being like, okay, Alpha's ability kind of seems to be like, okay, you can see every possible future of every outcome, and it's like determine like, okay, which one is actually going to be the right one. Which I'm glad that they established this, that it's not necessarily like future sight, because that would be a really broken ability. Like case in point, Yuha from Bleach, where he had the ability to see not just the future, but every possible future, and he was able to manipulate events in the future to his liking. So, while Alpha can see every possible future, it seems to be the case of like he cannot determine like what future is actually gonna happen, and it's further established like if it's further along in the future, he can it's a bit of a blur that what event he's seeing is it's less likely to happen. Whereas if it's nearer to the future, so say it's like 10 seconds into the future, it's more than likely, oh no, this is the actual event that's going to happen. So I'm glad that they give some limitations to this ability, of the sense like, okay, so for example, we find out that he does tell. If we find out that they do tell them about, oh yeah, we saw a future where Asa kills Tayo, but at the same time, it's like, how did they actually get to that possible future, and is that actually going to be the predetermined future of Alpha? So yeah, that's what his ability is. So he's sorting through myriad of possible futures to determine like, okay, which one is actually going to happen in the future. So in a way, it's kind of like Alpha is seeing the multiverse of the Mission Yozakura series. So that's kind of neat here. But yeah, like I said, it's not necessarily like 100% future sight, like what Yuha's ability was meant to be with the Almighty, of just being like, oh no, I can see all futures and I can manipulate them to my liking. Like, he can see the futures, but he can't like go into those futures, manipulate them. So for example, he can't be like, oh, I know what Asa's blooming is, so I'm gonna steal it in the future. He can't do that. That's not how his ability works. It's like, okay, we're seeing these futures, this is what could happen, but at the same time, it's not set in stone, essentially. They go on and say like, oh, and we're seeing snippets of those futures now. That's what they're establishing here. But Nano says, not precisely, but close enough. He firstly is to ensure Alpha's blooming is both safe and stable, so he's giving him smooth soda and anti-anxiety drink. So I guess seeing his family completely dead around him just boosts his anxiety levels up to essentially 1 million. And he goes on and says, "Oh, it's calcium free. It's calorie free, and refers to signs of aging too." As we have Mutsumi saying, I want one now. No, you don't, Mutsumi. Especially when you got your kids and Tayo, like, you do not want this. The age of drink that Nano's coming up with. But as Tayo says, yeah, personally, I'll be happy to grow old with you, Mutsumi. And yeah, Koricho's just there being like, getting a little bit annoyed by this, of just being like, Tayo, don't be taking away my... I guess it's obvious fan fiction, so it's just being like, he's gritting his teeth, Koricho, and it's just being like, can you get back to the explanation here? Before they go on and say, though Alpha's blooming is stable, we don't have a way to directly read what his precognition is picking up. To get around this, Keiko is using his simulation to pluck up the images from Alpha's mind, and Shio is using her analyze and somehow help to translate that DNA into an image we can project. So I guess yeah. So what it's saying here is that though Alpha's blooming is stable, they cannot get a read on like, okay, what precognition is he actually seeing before. So we're using Keiko's abilities and Shion's abilities to get a clear indication of what he's actually thinking right now. And we have obviously Alpha's thoughts coming through in the form of Keigo and Shion. So now what they're seeing are the futures Alpha is seeing, and obviously those futures involve his entire family, right down to Koricho, Hifumi, Tayo, and Mutsumi. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, his ability, and like I said, I'm glad that it's not overpowered. So while Mutsumi is questioning that, are we going to see everything that's happening here, now goes on to explain that, oh no, the futures, the further into the future the more they look like total bunk, and he assumes that the longer the longer the time frame occurs, the longer the time frame correlates to a lower probability of it occurring. So basically saying like, oh no, the more they look into the future, the more they're a blur, and pretty much assuming that the further along in the time frame of that future, it's less likely to be occurring. So I guess it's like, say for example, like, oh, I'm gonna go to Australia next year. That might be less likely to happen now in that future, but say for example, like, oh, I'm going to go to the left in the next 10 seconds, more than likely will be happening now. Obviously I'm not going to do that, but that, you kind of get the idea of where they're going from here. So in other words, they highly doubt that they'll end up looking like delinquents, or the route where they end up as underworld kingpins, that's less likely to happen, and the route when they become the demon lords, that's less likely to happen. As we have, I assume it's Mutsumi saying that, isn't there some isekai reincarnation in there? Like, Mission Yozakura don't give the series any ideas of another isekai. But yeah, they go on and say like, hey, we're sure that this is actually precognition and not just a vivid imagination, which is fair to say because Alpha is still a kid, so it could be like his vivid imagination's running wild here. And even Nano agrees, like, the images of the immediate future are 100% accurate, but these ones seem to be just his imagination going completely wild here. As we get the funniest scene in the chapter, where we have a precognition of Koricho getting a massive bump on the head, and they're saying, like, oh, take this one with Koricho with a goose head, that's projected to happen very, very soon here. And Koricho just dismisses it as like, yeah, that's nonsense, just because I've seen it, like, now I'm going to avoid it, and I'm going to be doing it, like, I'm going to walk away, because he probably assumes, like, oh, I'm going to get this bump on the head because I'm going to be arguing with the guys here, and they're going to bump me on the head, so, no, I'm just going to walk away, and he ends up slipping on a banana peel, and everyone's just there, like, oh yeah, that was precognition here, and we have him going, oh, it was sheer coincidence that there was a banana peel just randomly on the floor here. Okay, that is pretty funny, where you think, like, where Koricho probably was thinking, like, oh, they're going to hit me on the head. Yeah, I'm going to go and walk away. Oh, I slipped on a banana peel, still got the fit bump on the head. Yeah, but that was sheer coincidence. So, pretty funny stuff there. But they go on and reference the scene with Asa killing Tayo. And they say, oh, it's good things that they aren't guaranteed, so it's like a not 100% accurate future here. So that means the one they saw where Alpha and Keigo saw Tayo dead is probably fake as well. So it's nice that they're actually bringing this up. Like, there could be possibilities, like, yeah, even though we saw that as a likely outcome, it's less likely that it's going to happen now that they're aware of it. So it's nice that they have that. And again, like I said, it's not an OP ability because it could still very much happen. Like, Asa could be aware of, like, oh yeah, this is what his ability is, and he's seen me killing Tayo, and they're probably seeing it, so they're probably going to figure out a way to get around it. So I just have to figure out a way of getting it into that situation regardless. So it's nice that it's not OP, and they're still debating of, like, whether or not it is actually true or not. But they say it's hard to say for certain that the scenario didn't seem all that far into the future. Not that we'll let that happen. Even though it wasn't that far into the future, the fact that they know it now still means that they can override it. But I still see it being. I can see it being like a future that does actually happen, but not in the way that they think. So, like, yeah, Asa could this future could still happen, but it could be a situation where Asa just defeats Tayo rather than killing him. And of course, we get more comedy with these futures as well, where we have Tayo saying, like, even if the worst happens, Mama will still be here to protect you, Alpha. As we have Mutsumi just in the background saying, Tayo, saying in a way like, can you not give ideas into our son's head that, yeah, you might actually die here? And yeah, And yeah, they point out like actually it looks like Muzumi is on the verge of death here, and Tao at this point is like, oh, don't worry, Muzumi, even if they have chance of it ever happens to me, the rest of the family will be here for you and the twins. And it's like, Tao, you're not helping here, and you're just making things actually worse by saying like, yeah, I may die, but at least everyone else is here for you. Before we get everyone else being completely humiliated here, where we see a future where Keigo is fat and he's like, yeah, that's not me, and we have Shion being like, I guess a diva who's not afraid to be embarrass herself on camera, and she's just like, yeah, that's not me right there, and if that future somehow manages to come past, so just please kill me if that actually happens. And Futaba is just there being like, oh, what are you saying? You're worrying over nothing here. That's not going to happen. And yeah, don't worry about that. Before we have her Karicho point out to her like, oh, are you sure? Because we're seeing a future where you're a supermodel here, who's taller with really long legs, and Futaba is just there like, that's a monster. That is not me. Don't ever think about that. So yeah, pretty funny stuff that they all actually get humiliated in one way or another, before Alpha says, yeah, I haven't actually told them about the future where they're all dead, so maybe I should keep that to myself for now, which is a good thing, because if they're all worrying about that, then it can maybe cause the anxiety levels to shoot right back up there, before Tao reassures his son of like, it'll be alright, we can't see the future like you can, but we do know what we have to do here, as we see Asa's base, which is just a big behemoth of a ship just flying over Teo Academy where everyone is, and yet Asa's still giving the creepy, blank, emotional stare here of just being like, in celebration of our soon-to-be successful harvest, why don't we all enjoy this angel fruit cake I've baked? And we see his kids just being like, yay, fluffy cake, but why cake? But why cake? And they're just being like, oh, come and eat with us. Before they question like, but why the sudden assault order? Is there some big reason for it? As Asa goes on and says, yeah, to be honest, this angel cake turned out exceptionally well, which confuses Nee, who was basically asking the questions here, before he explains, if I were to present this to all of you, I thought it only proper that I did so for an appropriate occasion, something important, something captivating. As Nee is just like, wait, what? You're sending us on this assault over a cake? Like, basically the question like, wait, we're doing this assault over cake, which gets me thinking like, yeah, this assault is going to go well first for Asa, which means that they're going to have to go in, because it's going to be a case of like, okay, maybe some of the Yozakuras will get captured. I am 100% certain that is going to happen. Others will get away, but then Asa will be like, okay, I'm getting away with these Yozakuras. If you want them back, you're going to have to come and fight me at my base. So, well, one of the battles will probably take place will more than likely take place in Teo Academy. I think the final battle will take place on this behemoth of a ship, which would make the most sense. But yeah, Asa at this point just gives like the death glare of being like, are you dissatisfied? Before Nee says, oh, glare all you want, you can't fool us. Before we see Futaba, who after being humiliated was like, yeah, I'm going out for a stroll right here, ends up landing on top of the behemoth, and Asa is just like nonchalant about it, like, oh, they're here, I'm just going to sip a nice cup of tea here. As they say, there's no need to be particular about the day. The truly powerful are always ready for whatever may come. As we see Futaba using her abilities to basically send Asa and his group just plummeting down to them. So they're just saying like, oh, the enemy are right above us. Okay, we're going to bring them to us. So as Futaba sends the ship and potentially everyone, yeah, she sends the ship and everyone down below them. We see Hirofumi going, oh wow, that's a big ship, and Tao confirms like, yeah, it's Asa's ship, the Behemoth. they couldn't find a thing on it, no matter how hard they looked, so they figured that Asa's base had to be mobile. They searched for any airborne tech that could help, and finally they found a part of the blueprint to the behemoth. That means they could focus the school's radars on super high altitude and know the instant it got close, before they order Hifumi and Alpha to be like, okay, you go off with I and Ayaka, and you'll be safe for now. But don't worry, we may not be able to see the future, but we do know how to build one. So we're gonna basically bring them to us to fight them, which is going to go incredibly wrong. I can 100% guarantee that this is going to happen, as we see the family just falling, but Asa, again, nonchalantly just drinking his tea whilst holding the cake and just being like, now then, eat up while it's still warm from the oven. Don't worry, I've set one aside as a host's gift too. Don't panic, for us there is little more than an afternoon tea. No matter what they think they've planned, nothing can change the future I've set. So I feel like the future that Asa has set for them is going to happen. I mean, it won't happen fully, but half of it may happen. So I feel like the ones that are going to get captured are obviously Keigo and Shion and possibly Nanano. So I feel like those three are going to be the ones to get captured, whereas like the heavy hitters like being Futaba, Shinzo, Koricho, Tao, and possibly Mutsumi might get captured as well. Like, I can 100% predict that that is going to happen, and they're going to be like, okay, we have to go and get our family back from Asa before he does anything to them and take down his base once and for all. So I feel like that's what's going to happen. This battle is going to go well for them at first, but then Asa is going to get the victory in this battle before we head into the final battle get on the behemoth itself. Because given the fact that we're seeing this airship, I want to see the inside of this airship and what craziness is inside it. But yeah, rounding out the chapter, he said, they're going to say, no overt response detected. This is probably still in the expected range for him, but we'll soon inform him that our future is nothing like what he imagines. And that's where the chapter ends. So, honestly, this was an exposition chapter, just predicting what Alpha's Moon was going to be, given the potential name of it, like how the futures are going to work, like how the power actually is going to work, and whether or not some futures are going to happen, which is going to go south incredibly fast. I think the future that Alpha saw with all his family dead, I feel like that's partly true, but I feel like there's some of the family that, okay, they're passed out, but they're not actually dead, and yeah. That is something that could potentially happen, but I don't see it happening all the way. And like I said, I feel like this fight in the academy might be one of the first big fights before, like I said, we're getting into the final battle, which I feel like is going to be on the behemoth, or it could potentially take place back at the Yozakura family mansion. That's a possibility where it could actually take place, but who knows? That's something we'll have to wait to for another time. But anyway, guys, what did you think of this chapter? Let me know. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And this will be Lasherluke signing off. Later, guys.